this whole session. Perhaps you all are not aware of what is Coliforum. Briefly put, it's a top-level initiative establishing a discussion forum on the use of natural resources and on the bioeconomy. Coliforum is, so we are a platform now for leaders and experts to identify, analyze, and disseminate policy and management strategies that make the most of natural resources and innovation capacity. Within our topic areas, I would say that Coliforum has already evolved into a trend-setting advisory forum. The association organizes an international Coliforum like this one. Coliforum event, international one every second year, and roundtable discussions in between those main events. This time, Coliforum will focus on the importance of forests and the forest-based sector in offering solutions to climate change-related global challenges. After the keynote address and 3 other talks, we'll have a panel discussion with topical issues related to forest and climate change mitigation. You know that for the 100 years young Finland, forests have always been, and in future also, they will still be important in every way, culturally, economically, socially, ecologically, for the nation, for the people, for the nature, and increasingly also for the climate. In our session, we have a fine set of distinguished speakers and panelists. I will just briefly introduce the speakers, and Pentti, as a panel moderator, invites and introduces briefly the panelists. More information on people having talks and participating in the panel, you find more information on them in the forum's website. First, I'm very happy to invite the Minister for Housing, Energy and the Environment, Mr. Kimmo Tiilikainen, to give a keynote address at this 5th Coliforum. From his educational background, Minister Tiilikainen is an academic forester from the University of Eastern Finland. So I can assure you that he really knows well what it's all about when we are talking about and considering forest-based bioeconomy and climate change mitigation. Minister Tiilikainen.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Chairman, I'm delighted and honored to open this session, which also marks the 5th Coliforum. Coliforum is a top-level initiative establishing a new discussion forum on natural resources. The objective of this session is to increase our understanding about sustainable forest utilization. The major part of Finnish bioeconomy is based on forests. At the same time, we have a long cultural and institutional heritage to see the nature itself, its values and processes. As an integral part of sustainable forestry, as well the sustainable bioeconomy as a whole. Ecosystem services, meaning the services offered by the environment, include binding carbon dioxide, biodiversity, and opportunities for recreation. We have a very long tradition of sustainable forest management. And in Finland, the first national bioeconomy strategy was launched in 2014. It was published as a part of the governmental resolution, New Spearheads of Economic Growth. At the moment, the output of the Finnish bioeconomy exceeds 60 billion euros, and more than 300,000 people are employed in the sector. The share of bioeconomy in the Finnish national economy is 16%. Forest-based bioeconomy consists of forestry, wood products industry, and pulp and paper industry, and its share is about 40% of the bioeconomy sector in Finland. Bioeconomy combines wood processing, chemistry, energy, construction, technology, food and health. The Finnish bioeconomy strategy encourages industrial symbiosis to pave the way for new innovative processes and products. Current government, Prime Minister and his government adopted the idea to put bioeconomy forward in order to encourage the economic growth in Finland in 2015. In the action plan, we set a strategic target to be forerunner in bioeconomy, circular economy, and clean technologies. With all these, Finland strives to produce sustainable solutions to the global marketplace and at the same time improve the balance of current accounts, increase Finland's self-sufficiency, create new jobs, achieve our climate targets, and a good ecological status for the Baltic Sea. So this strategic goal covers a huge area of environmental and economic targets. In the governmental program to fulfill these targets, some 300 million euros additional financing was allocated to the focus area of bioeconomy and clean solutions, out of which 50 million is targeted to new forest products. With the additional funding, we can increase the supply of wood and diversify its use, develop new bioeconomy products, services and business models, and accelerate new bioeconomy innovations through pilot projects and demonstration activities. To speed up the wood supply, forest resource data need to be used more efficiently, which means that digital services need to be developed to better serve the forest owners and other actors in the forest sector. Open access of forest data gathered by the Forest Centre of Finland and the Natural Resource Institute will create new business models in the service sector. One example of that is the electronic wood marketplace, which opened just a month ago. The government wants to create favorable conditions for new investments in the forest sector. We welcome the investment projects that have lately started and those already in the pipeline. We are really glad that the forest industry investments have been steadily growing since 2009, with the exception of the year 2014. They were more than 1 billion euros last year. To guarantee the sustainable use of forest biomass, sustainable forest management is a key factor. Besides sustainably managed commercial forests, we also need forest reserves to protect biodiversity. And I'm also happy to tell that after a couple of weeks, we will open new national park to celebrate 100 years of Finnish independence. To maintain the biodiversity in forests, there are several instruments in use in Finland. Under all of these, the forest owner gets compensation for any major disadvantage, and this compensation is financed by the national budget. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me say a few words about the role of forests in climate policy. First, as I hope you all know, Finland is strongly committed to global climate agenda, including the Paris Agreement. And we are also strongly committed to European Union's ambitious climate and energy package. Now it's time to all of us to put into practice our commitments. Finland's long-term goal is a carbon-neutral society based on renewable energy sources. I have proposed that the year when we achieve this carbon neutrality could be 2045. And I wish that our government will confirm this strategy later this year. Our government has concluded an ambitious energy and climate strategy that states that the share of renewable energy on final energy consumption will rise above 50% in the 2020s. Another target is that we are going to get rid of coal in energy production. Third target is that we are going to cut by half the use of fossil oil in our energy production, and all these three targets during next decade. Investment subsidies for renewable energy are mainly targeted towards commercializing new technology in the effort-sharing sector, especially in the installations producing advanced transport biofuels. Bioeconomy is one of the most important ways to achieve targets in the EU's climate and energy framework and to foster innovation, growth and employment in different parts of the EU. Like I mentioned, we are committed to EU's at least 40% greenhouse gas emission reduction target. We have also taken a very ambitious renewable energy target that is largely based on sustainable use of wood. Finland is the most forested country in Europe. Our well-being depends on sustainable forest management, and forests are very close to hearts of Finns. In the EU, climate and energy legislation for the year 2030 is currently negotiated. The Commission has proposed emission reduction targets for the Member States in the effort-sharing sector, and also how land use change and forestry, LULUCF, would be taken into account in the 2030 framework. It's important to proceed in the negotiations and reach the agreement on the package. However, we have some concerns, especially on the LULUCF proposal. The Commission's proposal on effort sharing assigns very ambitious emission reduction target for Finland, -39%. The Commission proposal includes many useful elements of flexibility for the Member States. The LULUCF sector may offer an additional but limited flexibility for the effort-sharing sector to meet its target. However, LULUCF and in particular forests are a significant net sink in reality, and the accounting rules should take this into account. There's a great opportunity for increased use of European forests on a sustainable basis and at the same time mitigate climate change. These targets are not opposite to each other. This would lead to innovation, growth and employment throughout the Union, and it would decrease EU's dependency from using biomass outside EU member states. Finland has had a very long economic recession, and our future well-being relies heavily on ongoing investments in bioeconomy and increased use of wood. EU policies should be fully coherent. Ladies and gentlemen, Finland also recognizes the role of forests in the citizens' well-being and everyday life. Nearby all the Finns are active in using the forest for recreation. The Natural Resources Institute conducted a survey in 2010 which showed that adults had on the average 170 outdoor activities during 1 year, so every second day. The most popular activities were picking wild berries, harvesting of fuel food, picking mushrooms, hiking, forest management in leisure time, backpacking and hunting. Picking wild berries and mushrooms and hiking are allowed in all the forest regardless of their ownership. Nature tourism has become a very important livelihood in Finland, and it is still growing. To wrap up, the goal of Finland's bioeconomy is to create new economic growth and jobs through new bio-based business, production and services both, while securing ecosystem services. Our forests have a diverse role in the field of bioeconomy. We want to take good care of our forest resources so that we can substitute fossil raw materials in products and energy with forest-based biomass. Productive and healthy forest resources are needed for carbon sequestration, and in that way they help us to combat the climate change. And one very good target in this is increasing wooden building and construction, where the carbon is stored for decades or even hundreds of years in the wooden constructs, wooden particles. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very successful Koli Forum this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister Tiilikainen, for a prominent and encouraging speech. Wise words worth listening for all leaders in the globe. I hope your words will reach a big audience after this. And of course, when we are preparing our messages from this Koli Forum, we will take tender care of those words and deliver them. Now I have the honor, and I'm pleased to invite Ms. Ma Yong from China, the Deputy Director General of the Department of Resources Conservation and Environmental Protection at the National Development and Reform Committee of the People's Republic of China. Her speech will be translated into English language by an interpreter. Her topic, as you see, is China's circular low-carbon development and international cooperation, an extremely interesting issue right now. Ms. Ma Yong, welcome.
Distinguished delegation, ladies and gentlemen, it's a grand honor to be here. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this forum. Thank you to bringing us together to this very special event. 因为今天来了，还有我们许多中国的同行，所以呢，我是用中文发言，我们有翻译。
I have many Chinese colleagues, so today I would like to make my speech in Chinese.
那么借这个2017国际循环经济论坛在芬兰召开之际呢，我们来跟大家共同交流一下中国在发展循环经济方面取得了一些成效，分享一些我们的经验。
I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you the present situation of China's circular and low-carbon development, as well as sharing with all of you the experience of China.
那么中国呢是从2003年呢引进了循环经济的这个理念，并且呢由我们国家发展改革委呢具体负责循环经济发展的工作。
In 2003, Chinese government officially put forward the concept of circular economy. Since then, as the responsible functional division, the National Development and Reform Commission, hand in hand with other concerned departments and local governments,
大家知道，中国经过这个30多年的改革开放，经济取得了这个快速的发展。但是呢，我们也受到了资源和环境的制约，面临着资源短缺和环境污染这个瓶颈的制约。
As all of you might be aware of, China has made vigorous and robust economic growth during the last 30 years since China opened its door to the outside world. But meanwhile, China has also suffered a shortage of natural resources, and now it has become a bottleneck for the continuous economic development of China.
中国政府呢，把发展循环经济作为中国呢建设生态文明、提高资源利用效率、转变经济发展的方式、调整中国的经济结构、优化中国产业结构的一个重大的战略和有效的途径。
The Chinese government has already set the circular economy as a major strategy to protect the natural environment, to fasten construction of eco-civilization, raise efficiency of resource utilization, transfer development patterns, adjust economic structure, and optimize industrial structures.
那么，2008年呢，中国呢就出台了循环经济的促进法，这个法呢也成为我们继德国和日本之后呢第3部在世界上第3部循环经济的相关的法律。那么我们也呢在这个法律之中呢制定了循环经济的一些制度，比如我们的规划制度、生产者责任的延伸制度、污染防治制度等等。同时呢，我们也开展了一些循环经济的一些相关推动工作。
This law confirms systems for such as circular economy planning, extended producer responsibility, suppression of resource waste, and control of total pollutant discharge. In order to improve the operability of this basic law, we have stipulated many other complementary regulations and rules.
比如我们制定了这个废弃电子电器产品回收处理的条例，还有呢再生产品回收利用的管理的办法，还有呢商品零售行业呢购物袋的有偿使用的管理办法等等法规。同时我们还在修订呢报废汽车的回收管理的条例，还有我们参除废弃物的资源化利用条例。
For instance, regulation on the administration of the recovery and disposal of waste electronical and electrical products, administrative measures for the recovery of renewable resources, administrative measures for the paid use of plastic bags at commodity retailing places. At present, the regulation on recycling of scrapped automobiles is under amendment. Meanwhile, regulation on management and resource utilization of kitchen disposal is in the process of research and stipulation.
为推动中国的循环和低碳产业的发展呢，我们国务院呢印发了循环经济发展的战略和近期的行动计划。那我们也出台了一系列呢促进循环和低碳发展的一些投融资的政策、税收优惠政策，在国家呢也设立了循环经济发展的专项资金。
In order to promote industries of circular economy in accordance with the circular economy strategy and recent action plan put forward by the State Council, we have introduced a series of preferential policies in fields of financial subsidies, investment, and financing, as well as taxation.
我们也同时在全国呢开展了一些循环经济的示范试点工作，来进行推广和复制这些经验。
In addition, we have supported the construction of demonstration cities or counties.
那么“十二五”期间呢，我们中国呢资源产出率呢提高了18%以上。
During the implementation of the 12th five-year plan, the resource output efficiency has gone up by 18%.
那么资源循环利用超值呢，也是超过了1.5万亿人民币。
With a total output value exceeding 1.5 trillion RMB.
那么在中国政府呢，也注意在循环经济方面呢加强国际交流与合作。我们与德国、日本呀，包括一些国际组织呢，都有很好的合作。
In addition, the Chinese government has always been paid much attention to the international cooperation in this field, such as Germany and Japan.
特别是今年呢，我们国家主席习近平呢访问了芬兰，提出呢要深化双方的循环经济、资源利用效率、可持续发展、环境城市的建设工作。
Particularly during President Xi Jinping's visit to Finland this April, he emphasized both countries should deepen cooperation in fields of circular economy, efficient of resource utilization, sustainable development, and so on.
我们也正在呢启动与欧盟建立循环经济的常态下的合作机制。我们争取呢也跟欧盟呢今年签署一个合作框架的备忘录。
We are also initiating a bilateral dialogue between China and EU members to establish a normalized cooperation mechanism.
下一步呢，我们中国将以更开放的姿态呢， 开展循环经济工作，通过"一带一路"的建设，加强循环经济的国际交流，同时呢，促进我们国内的循环经济不断的发展，提高我们的资源利用效率，使我们中国的这个循环和低碳事业呢得到更快的发展。谢谢大家。
And next time, the Chinese government will take a more open-minded attitude toward international cooperation to substantially fulfill the One Belt, One Road initiative put forward by the Chinese government. And thank you very much for your attention.
还要送个礼物。
Thank you very much, Ms. Marong, for a momentous talk.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fine messages based on which we can conclude that there is a good future for cooperation between China and European Union in the field of climate change mitigation and also in the natural resources sector and forestry as well. As you know, we have investment plans in Finland for which Chinese capital has been promised to be invested on. Fine. Thank you again. Next speaker will be Dr. Mark Palahi, Director of the European Forest Institute, the headquarters of which are situated in Joensuu, within the campus area of the University of Eastern Finland, I would like to say, as I'm working at the university. Mark will speak about the role of forests in climate change mitigation, so a topic in the core of the 5th Coliforum. Mark, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, during the next 10 minutes, I would like to share some reflections and facts with all of you regarding why unlocking the potential of forest in fighting climate change requires simultaneously addressing mitigation and adaptation questions based on a synergistic relationship between building an ambitious bioeconomy and enhancing the resilience of our forest. But let me start with the big picture. For 200 years, since the start of the Industrial Revolution, we have relied on a fossil-based economy, which have characterized our industrial era, an era that has resulted in unprecedented population and economic growth, as well as social and technological progress. An era that during the last 30 years have experienced a great acceleration, leading to global economic convergence for the first time ever. Just to exemplify this great acceleration of the last 30 years, consider that we have managed to reduce poverty from 40% to less than 10% of the global population, and in 30 years, the global GDP and the size of the global middle class have tripled. The other side of the coin is that the industrial era has as well resulted in the greatest environmental externalities of our history. We have basically modified the climate of our planet. We have really modified the climate of our planet. And we have as well crossed other planetary boundaries related to the biosphere integrity or the land system. But the issue, the challenge, is that such acceleration is expected to continue. Just consider that by 2030, we expect to have 2 billion more people joining the global middle class. That will have huge socioeconomic and environmental implications. So what is clear is that the current economic paradigm cannot address the emerging needs of such increasing global population in terms of food, water, energy, and materials, and at the same time address the urgent global environmental challenges that we are facing. So basically we need a new economic paradigm, a paradigm where prosperity takes place within the planetary boundaries, a paradigm where biological resources and not fossil resources become the basis for a sustainable economy, a paradigm where the bioeconomy becomes the prosperity engine for sustainable development. But why biological resources and the bioeconomy are so important in moving towards a new economic paradigm? Well, while the energy sector in the long run will be almost fully decarbonized, we will still need to produce an increasing amount of materials for housing, transport, clothing, packaging and those materials rely on carbon. But if we want to address the big problem of climate change, those materials will need to come predominantly from biological renewable resources. Of course, this requires that using biological resources needs to be intelligent, efficient, and above all, sustainable. And this also requires that we need to maintain the resilience to climate change of our biological infrastructure. So the new paradigm needs to bring together two concepts that so far have been developed in parallel, the circular economy and the bioeconomy. These two concepts need to be connected to each other to be able to unlock their own potential to address climate change and support sustainable development. And in that context, forestry, and the forest-based sector offers great potential in catalyzing such transformational change towards a circular bioeconomy. Let me tell you why. First of all, our forests are the most important land biological infrastructure that we have in the planet, also in our continent. And let me give you three important reasons why forests play a fundamental role in combating climate change. First of all, forests are crucial to increase the resilience and adaptability of our urban and rural areas, because they have a clear positive effect in the sustainability of water, soil, and biodiversity. Second, forests are one of the most important carbon sinks in the planet. At the EU level, forest and wood products have a climate change mitigation effect of 13% of the overall EU emissions. This is more than the entire emissions coming from the cement and steel industry. So it's very substantial. Last but not least, our forests are the main source for non-food, non-feed, renewable biological resources. Resources that with the advance of science and technology, and we will see later on some examples, can be transformed in materials as soft as cotton or as resistant as steel. So just let's look at one example of how forest resources can be used to transform into a more sustainable, for example, construction sector. Construction sector, that was mentioned already by Minister Tiilikainen, is one of the most important economic sectors in Europe, representing 10% of the GDP and providing more than 12 million jobs. But it has also huge climate change impacts. The construction and use of buildings represents 35% of the CO2 emissions and 42% of the energy consumption. Huge climate change implications. This is partly explained because two materials dominate the sector, cement and steel. And remember that producing a ton of steel releases an average of 1.7 tons of CO2. Producing 1 ton of cement releases an average of 1 ton of CO2. So what can wood offer to the construction sector? Well, first of all, wood is the only significant building material that can be sustainably grown. It's the only within a human life cycle. Second, the use of timber in construction nowadays does not have any technical limitations compared to steel and concrete. But in addition, it has a clear positive climate change mitigation effect. Using 1 ton of wood products in construction instead of cement avoids an average of 2 tons of CO2. If we put that number into a wider perspective, it means that if all new buildings will use 50% of the materials based on wood products, that would offset the entire emissions of the cement production for the entire construction sector. That's a huge impact. But let's go back to the forest now. As Minister Tiilikainen was mentioned, it is crucial also to enhance the resilience of our forest ecosystems in order to ensure a sustainable contribution towards a bioeconomy. And I want to show you an example of how important sustainable forest management in synergies with a bioeconomy can enhance the resilience of forests. Let's go to Catalonia, the southern Europe, the region where I come from. In 1992, an experiment was established to explore the impact of forest management of heavy thinnings on the resilience and the water cycle, resilience of forest and water cycle. 2 years later, 1994, it was a very, very dry year with plenty of forest fires in the region. What we saw is that those plots that had been managed, that had been thinned, were resilient to drought, while the forests surrounding the plots that had been managed did not survive the year. And they became sources of carbon that year. They were not sinks. At the same time, and here you can see very well those plots, at the same time, the risk of forest fires was substantially reduced in this managed forest. And remember that forest fires are one of the main reasons for CO2 release from the land system. It is estimated that more than 7 gigatons per year are released on an annual basis due to forest fires. This is at the scale of deforestation. It's huge. With these two examples, wood construction and forest management, I wanted to show you that bioeconomy and resilience can support each other, and that forest management can simultaneously provide a sustainable basis for forest resources to build an ambitious bioeconomy, and at the same time enhance the resilience of forests so that our forests will continue to be carbon sinks in the future. So to finish, I would like to highlight that in a recent European scientific report facilitated by the European Forest Institute, it was concluded that climate-smart forestry measures could increase by 70% the existing climate change mitigation potential of forest and wood products. This is great potential considering the already existing climate change mitigation effect of forest and the use of wood products. At global level, another recent scientific assessment published by FAO showed that with a carbon price of $20, we could add an additional mitigation effect through afforestation, stopping deforestation, and forest management of an additional 5 gigatons per year. This is also extremely high potential and very cost effective. Just consider that in a recent article published in Science, authored by the Stockholm Resilience Center, it was concluded that by 2050, we would need carbon capture technologies to remove around 5 gigatons of CO2 per year from the atmosphere. Here you have the most cost-effective carbon capture technology that we can implement. So my key message for all of you today is that to unlock the potential of forest in addressing the problem of climate change, we need a long-term and holistic approach to sustainable forest management and net forest area expansion, which is built in a synergistic way between building a bioeconomy and enhancing the resilience of our forest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for emphasizing the importance of sustainable forest management and for raising the European and global dimensions, as forests are not only important only for Finns, but for the globe, for the whole globe, of course. By forest bioeconomy, may I make a conclusion based on Mark's talk? By forest bioeconomy, we perhaps can even postpone the time point when mankind must leave the planet to move to another more favorable planet in comparison to the process or our future if we would rely too much on fossil resources. So forest bioeconomy may save the world, may save the earth, may save the mankind even. Okay, we will continue, and the next focus of this 5th College Forum is on innovative bio-based solutions. That's the topic of our next speaker, Kati Holst. Please, Kati, welcome here. She is an expert in paper and innovative solutions, wood-based products. Currently, she is leading Stora Enso's paper division with nearly 6,000 employees and global sales of more than 3 billion euros. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone, Minister Tiilikainen, Ms. Marong from China, and the other listeners of the forum. So my purpose today is to tell a bit about what we are doing at Stora Enso related to bio-based innovations. So first of all, I think we could say that the roots of our company are very much in a forest, and the main raw material we use is wood, which is renewable and recyclable. Stora Enso is today transforming from being a traditional paper, pulp and board company to become a customer-focused growth company in renewable materials. The basic ambition we have is to offer competitive alternatives for products that are not based on fossil materials, but that are renewable. And by saying that, we are also saying that basically everything that today is made out of fossil materials can be made out of tree tomorrow. Some of the things will take a longer time, but we are working on many of them already today. We also think that the potential for this is big, and why? It's because it's supported very much by the big mega trends we see going, them being urbanization, climate warming, but also the eco-awareness of people. If you think of the tree or wood as a raw material today, I think we honestly can say that we basically use half of it efficiently. We use the cellulose part. The rest of the wood is mainly used as biomass for energy. But what is the potential we could have in using lignin, the glue of the wood, or using hemicellulose, the sugars of the wood, to create totally new products that replace currently products that are made of fossil materials? So during this short presentation, I will introduce a couple of innovative ideas through which we are growing as a company, we are developing our business, and also contributing to circular economy. And now I have to remember to press this. So our innovation work basically focuses on several areas, but what is common to all of them, that we really want to make us and our future more renewable. So the areas are, for instance, bio-based chemistry, material science and design, process solutions, of course, forestry and raw materials, and then as last one but not least, digitalization. So how we can use robotics, connectivity, to change the way we work, to build new business models, and also in that way enhance circular economy. But we do recognize at Stora Enso that we can't do everything alone, and that's why we are embracing open innovation and collaboration with our customers, suppliers, research institutes, universities, and startups. So now I want to share with you in the following couple minutes a couple examples of the recent innovations we have. First one has to do with microfibrillated cellulose, MFC. And with MFC, we basically want to outperform fossil-based materials, but also to make our existing products better by using less materials. So MFC has enormous potential, especially in packaging area, in source reduction, because it makes possible to have strength and durability in a product with less weight. It means that for every ton of carton we produce, we can use less raw materials, less water, and less energy. And as the picture shows, this material has been successfully implemented, for instance, in liquid packaging, in dairy area, where Elopak has been using it for more than 100 million liquid packages already. We are also now accelerating the development of applications for MFC by the recent investments we have been doing in Finland and Sweden. And the potential here can be huge. So we are looking for entirely new products, applications, which could actually be basically totally out of the product range we are having today. Then another innovation from Stora Enso is the Eco Fish Box, which is a truly sustainable alternative to the polystyrene fish box that you are used to seeing at markets or at stores. So these Eco Fish Box packages are made of waterproof, leak-tight and food contact-approved board material, which also have very good printing possibilities. And this packaging mode also makes it possible to use automatic packaging, which also saves cost. And when packages like this are made of renewable and recyclable material, then actually also the collection and recycling systems that we already have are there and exist. So then it means that there's no risk of this plastic getting into the oceans of the world, like happens to the polystyrene today. There's another benefit with this EcoFix fish box, because it actually requires 7 times less space during transportation and storage than the traditional polystyrene box. So it means a clear reduction in transport-related emissions, storage and handling cost. And this concept has been awarded by the Nordic ScanStar and International WorldStar Awards. The third innovation area, actually already a bit referred to, has to do with textiles. So we are pursuing an increase of demand for dissolving pulp as a sustainable raw material for textiles. Our Enocell pulp mill in Uimaharju, Finland, produces some 150,000 tons of dissolving pulp. And this pure dissolving pulp is used by our customers in the production of viscose fibers for the textile industry. This is a truly traceable source of raw material, which has clearly lower environmental impact than the other alternatives currently. And it's not competing with food production. So in this area, we are having a lot of collaboration with partners and potential customers to develop the product further. We are, for instance, working with Aalto University in Finland and the well-known Finnish design company Marimekko. The fourth innovation area, already also a bit referred to, concerns wood in construction. The building that you see here is a multi-story library in Melbourne, Australia, using our cross-laminated timber, also known as CLT, as raw material. Buildings have a sizable environmental footprint in terms of carbon, energy, and water use and waste. We want to make consumers, politicians, and the construction industry aware of wood as a construction material, because it's a climate-smart choice, and it offers healthy, low-carbon, and energy-efficient building solution. We believe in Stora Enso that the demand for green buildings and sustainable living are very much increasing, and it's opening very vast commercial opportunities for wood, because it is the only truly sustainable building material. So Stora Enso has further developed modular building systems with wood, and together with our partners, we are creating a framework and an ecosystem that will help increase the adaptation of sustainable building solutions and materials in the future. Then the final example is a true win-win collaboration. So Stora Enso and Volvo Cars in Ghent in Belgium have now a hot water pipeline between the two production units. And this was installed in the end of last year. So it's a 4-kilometer pipeline that takes hot water, which has been heated using renewable energy at our paper mill in Ghent, to Volvo's plant, and they use this heat then to warm up the building and the paint booths for the cars. And the result of this collaboration, Volvo Cars Ghent has been able to reduce their CO2 emissions by 40%, and that equals to about heating 5,000 households, so it's quite massive. And we are at Stora Enso committed to reducing our use of fossil fuels as close to zero as possibly when it's economically and technically viable in the coming years. And this Volvo example is a good example of the type of collaboration we have and can have in many places. Today, 12 of Stora Enso's mills are connected to local district heating systems, and by doing that, we are, of course, then significantly reducing the use of oil and other fossil fuels in those areas. So through these examples, I wanted to demonstrate a bit how we at Stora Enso are contributing to circular economy. So by collaboration and by producing bio-based products that are renewable and recyclable. Thank you.
Thank you, Kati, for an inspiring speech. It's always amazing to hear how versatile and many-sided material wood really is, and what all forest can provide for us. Thank you. Could you please take
Yes, thank you.
your seat in the panel? Yes, it's time to move to the panel discussion phase of this fifth Coliforum. I have an honor to invite Dr. Pentti Hyttinen, the Director General of Metsähallitus, here to the stage and take the lead of the panel discussion. Metsähallitus, the Director General of which Pentti is a state enterprise governing all the state-owned lands and waters in Finland. It means about 1/3 of the total area of the country, including both managed forests, national parks, all conserved areas, water areas, and so on. Pentti, you can invite the panelists.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jyrki, for this introduction. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to start the panel discussion and deepen the themes addressed in the presentations. And I ask Kati to stay here and Mark to come here again. And then we have 3 more fellows here. Mr. Henrik Ehrnrooth comes from Pöyry Company, chairman of the board of Pöyry. Then we have Mrs. Erika Mink, Vice President Public Affairs at Tetra Pak International. And finally, Mr. Kai Merivuori. He's the Managing Director of Finnish Sawmills Association. So we will have only half an hour time available, so we have to start immediately. The aim is to discuss on 3 approaches here. First, the framework of climate policies, what is the forest bioeconomy in the framework of climate policy, and the other aspect is what is the role of forest bioeconomy in circular economy, and finally we address the approach of research and technology. So to start with, the national and international climate policy. May I ask first Mr. Ehrnrooth, or I hope I can call you by first name, yes. Henrik, to take the first question. How do you see the current recognition and role of forest bioeconomy within national and in international climate policy? What do you think about this?
Thank you. I would first refer to Mark's speech, which was explained the enormous role of the potential role of forests for mitigating climate change. So I won't repeat what Mark has already told you in European scale. On a world scale, by 2050, in order to reach the Paris Agreement goals, we could see that there is a budget of some 700 gigatons of emissions that needs to be stopped by 2050. And in the current scenarios, there is a big role for carbon capture and storage a technical carbon capture and storage. And as Mark explained, by reforestation on global scale, there is a much cheaper and better solution. We have lost around 130 million hectares of forest land since 1990, and we can replant it. That would, as such, be a huge carbon storage, and it would also be a carbon storage which is much cheaper to achieve than technical carbon capture and storage. One thing I would like to say here is that we cannot substitute fuels by biomass. We should on a global scale. That is a misunderstanding that we should kill immediately. There is not enough biomass to substitute all fuels.
Thank you. So Mark, you already touched this issue briefly in your presentation, but how do you see this role?
I think I can refer to my speech back, and in my opinion, climate policy at international, also at European level and even national level, I think have put almost all the emphasis in seeing the climate change mitigation potential of forest in the forest only as a carbon sink. And I think to unlock the potential, we need, first of all, a long-term approach, because forests are developed in a long-term basis and a very holistic approach, bringing together adaptation and mitigation issues. This also reflects the fact how climate policy have been developed in the last years, keeping mitigation and adaptation issues separately. And of course, this has had also a consequence on how forest issues have been included in climate policies. Some progress has been made recently in recognizing the importance of the carbon stored in wood products, but still, if we want to have to unlock the great potential of a forest bioeconomy, that recognition, especially the substitution effect of using wood-based products instead of steel, concrete, and plastic, should be better recognized. And of course, to do that, the best approach would be to have an agreement on a global carbon price, to generate the incentives to invest on the bioeconomy, on afforestation, on forest management to enhance productivity.
Mm-hmm. Any other viewpoints, Kai?
Yeah, basically, I see one of the challenges is that circumstances around the world vary a lot. And I believe that the combination of bioeconomy and circular economy is very, very important. In areas where we have quite big bioresources like Finland, bioeconomy works well. And in regions where the population is big and resources are scarce, the circular economy complements the bioeconomy. I think the key issue is to remember that the resources are scarce and we need to work for resource efficiency. The challenge is that we find global rules which we can follow around the world.
So it seems that we all agree that the role of forest bioeconomy is very essential concerning climate policy, but it's a question of whether or not the recognition is good enough for the moment. So let's go on. And the theme of this whole event is circular economy. And it was a learning experience to listen to the presentation by Kati concerning this theme. How do you consider the forest-based bioeconomy and circular economy in structure and in relation to each other? Is it the same thing or it's a different thing, and how much they have overlapping?
Well, I guess to start with, one could say that bioeconomy is an essential part of circular economy, and they are more complementary than anything else, in my opinion. So I think in bioeconomy, our task is pretty much to make consumers and companies aware of products that you can make out of renewable, recyclable materials, and then develop new products and new availability and new uses of these raw materials. Then the other thing I think is that if you look at forest industry, it is very circular. To start with, I think we use the tree and different parts of it to the most value-added product from the start. Sawmills chips come to the pulp mill. I used to make pulp and paper and board. And then if you take a paper mill with an integrated pulp mill at the site, it is basically its own circular economy. It is energy sufficient. It even supplies heat to local grid. All the side streams are basically used for new products or then burned if nothing else, and basically nothing goes to landfill. So I think there are a lot of similarities, and I see that bioeconomy very much supports the circular economy task ahead.
Thank you. How about Erika? How do consumers see circular economy and the use of renewable materials? You are an expert within Tetra Pak.
Well, consumers care. So we have done market research and consumer research over the last years, and in different parts of the world, in Europe, but also in Americas, in China, in Asia. And what we can see is a clear trend. 10 years ago, the predominant requirement for us as a packaging manufacturer was recyclability and recycling. That is still the case. But in addition, we see that consumers more and more care also about what materials are used, where are materials coming from, traceability of materials, not just people want to know where food is coming from, and we are providing packaging for the food industry, but people also want to know where the materials are coming from. And we see with great interest that there is more and more potentially not an understanding of circular economy, but there is an increasing understanding that it is very important where materials are coming from, and not just that they are recycled and recyclable, but also that they come from sustainable sources. And Marco, you mentioned it, and Kati, you mentioned it as well, how important it is, particularly when we talk about biomass as a resource, that it's the only material we have that can regrow and that we can secure availability for the future under the condition that it is sustainably sourced. We have been working particularly with the Forest Stewardship Council where the Nordic countries have a great leadership, which allows us today that we can offer FSC certified packages all over the world. And we would hope to see more and happy to help driving that development even further.
How about sawmill industry, Kai? I think all the sawmill products are recirculable, so to say.
Yes, absolutely. I think our business follows very well the modern trends in the markets, both bioeconomy and circular economy. I would like to take this opportunity to send my best regards from my member companies, sawmills, to our counterparts in China. China was our biggest export market of sawn timber in the first quarter of this year. Last year it was the second. I was wondering why the Chinese want to buy Finnish wood, and I went to a furniture store where I saw actually quite expensive Chinese furniture produced of Finnish wood. And the answer was, we want to have this wood because it comes from sustainable sources, and young Chinese couples, they are ready to pay for this information. And I was actually I was surprised, I was very happy. Also, the resource efficiency in the processes, we live on recovery rate in practice. So it's a part of our everyday to make the most of the expensive fiber.
Very good. Any other stories? Mark?
Yeah, just to complement what it has been said, to me the circular economy and the bioeconomy are two concepts of the same hierarchy. Because the circular economy that still relies on fossil resources will not be able to address most of the global environmental challenges that we have. So the bioeconomy offers the potential of having a renewable resource. And at the same time, a bioeconomy which uses circular principles will become more efficient. And that is important because if we need to move towards a bio-based economy using predominantly biological resources instead of fossil resources, then we need to optimize as much as possible. And the circular economy offers very, very interesting principles to increase the efficiency. So to me, they are like an aid where the two concepts need to be connected.
Mm-hmm. So it seems that forest-based bioeconomy is clearly it has a big role in circular economy, but it is also a great potential there, which is not yet taken into use. Anyone else would like to comment on this? Henrik?
Just the definition, I mean, the forest-based bioeconomy is a carbon cycle, whereas the other circular economy is a material cycle, and there is a very big difference there.
It's also possible to ask questions from the audience. If there are any, please raise your hand.
There's a question.
So please. You have a microphone there.
From Nordic Energy Research. We have made a research project called Enerwoods that demonstrates that we can double the biomass production from Nordic forestry without significant investments. The idea behind this is, of course, not that all the increased production should be used for fuels, but for other purposes, lignin, medicine, etc. So my question to the panel is, do you see, which obstacles do you see for realizing this possibility, this opportunity to double the production of biomass from forestry in the 4 Nordic countries? Thank you.
So, doubling the biomass. Who would like to answer? Any? Yes.
Well, I don't believe that the biomass for energy use will be doubled from forestry, because the industry is so much in R&D and innovation, developing more value-added products out of the tree, and not only using cellulose, but also using lignin and hemicellulose. So I believe that biomass from forestry will continue to be important, but doubling it for energy use, I don't believe in.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. So any other questions at this point? Please.
Thank you. Andrew Lang, World Bioenergy Association, coming from Australia, but I'm working in Sudan around Khartoum, and it's a very deforested country heading towards total deforestation by somewhere around 2029. The last tree will be cut down to produce firewood or charcoal. And while we are talking about Europe, there is massive ability for the European experience to be translated into northern and eastern Africa and other parts of the world that are deforested, and also for biomass to come into Europe from other parts of the world that currently have a shipping economy problem if that biomass is densified. And I understand your point about the value adding, but one of the value adding options is to densify it for sale into the maybe for production of fuels, or maybe for production of substitutes for petrochemicals or for energy. So is there any scope for extending the expertise from the Coley Forum towards these other parts of the world?
Would you like to answer this? Henrik, please.
I believe that reforestation going towards 2050 is a very important climate mitigation step. And if we start reforestation in a massive scale, as I said, we have lost 130 million hectares, part of which in the country you mentioned. The first use could be energy. While research is going on, we will find other uses of wood, more economic uses, but the first step could be energy use, and there is a potential, in my opinion, but not in the very long term. Because then I agree with Kati that in the very long term, the wood-paying capability of other more valuable products is higher than for energy.
So it seems we need bioenergy to get rid of fossil fuels, but then in the long run, it would be better to develop other sources for energy. Okay, very good. Then we take one more.
Jouni Keronen, Climate Leadership Council. So Henrik mentioned in the opening words that this traditional CCS, carbon capture and storage, is very difficult. So I just listened to IEA's presentation 2 weeks ago in Bonn. They have made new technology forecasts, and IEA is calculating that we need to have like 6 gigatons of CCS by 2050. So that is actually 150 times the current capacity. So I agree that traditional CCS may not be as potential as many people think. But then forests. So forests have so many uses. They act like carbon sinks, carbon storages, substitution matters. So what do we need to do in order to measure and monitor this in a better way, and also then do policies accordingly? So this question is for all the panelists.
Thank you very much. Who would like to answer?
On maybe just one comment on the political scene, of course, in EU, it's not always easy as a big forest country get your voice heard. And there, of course, if you look at even in European scene, a lot of different voices from other industries and countries that have maybe a bit more clout in the decision making. So I think one thing that is important for us, for Sweden, from some other countries, and to reach the climate change targets that we have in EU, that we make also other countries and politicians in other countries to understand what is the role of forest to mitigate climate change, and what is it that our countries could contribute also on European level when the policies are made, and how, for instance, the targets are looked at, calculation methods are looked at, what the role of forest is as a carbon sink. So I think a lot of more common understanding still needed around these topics to arrive at good decisions, in my opinion.
Henrik.
I'm using my last, because we were supposed to answer the question also on a vision for 2030. And my vision to answer the question is that by 2030, we will have a digital satellite-based system whereby we know every tree in the world. And we will be able to measure all forests in the world. And we will be able to measure the cutting of those woods and possibly the use. So that, I think, is one of the resources we can measure more than anything else. If you talk to politicians today, they think the opposite. They think that forests cannot be measured.
Okay, thank you so much. Please.
But just to add, I think what we can measure, we can manage. But to manage it requires, I think it requires government support. If we think of what we have in the EU, we have EU timber regulation, which has been greatly supportive in making sure that the timber-based or forest-based products entering our geography, our territory, comes from traceable and responsible sources. Other countries, Australia, US, have similar pieces of legislation, and I think there we need at an international level, we need agreement on what can be traded and under what conditions biomass and forest and timber products can be traded. And I think we have models, we have solutions, and I think it would help to well, also for us in business, we're all part of a global economy, and we need more internationally harmonized rules and standards, also criteria for sustainability and sourcing of biomass in order to really drive the potential and to leverage the potential of a bioeconomy.
So thank you. So far we have been discussing on the climate policy and then the issue of circular economy related to forest bioeconomy. And we have already raised some research needs and needs for technological development. But in general, what do you think? What are the bottlenecks? What is needed in research? What is needed in technological development to increase the role of forest bioeconomy? Would you, Erika, start with that?
Yeah, I think we have heard already great examples now in this panel and also earlier this morning. There is a lot already developed, and I think we have to see how can we deploy it. And therefore, again, in the end of the day, the word economy, it needs to make economic sense. And if we look at the fossil-based products and the fossil-based industry, they have a long history. They have a lot of experience in professionalizing and driving efficiency in their processes, and to shift from highly efficient processes to new and sustainable bio-based processes, we often see that it requires huge investments, and for those huge investments we need, again, regulatory security. And let me give you one example from our business. We have a vision to make all the packaging material, all the packaging we supply to the food industry and to consumers from renewable materials. We start with major part is carton-based, is paper-based, forest-based, but we laminate our packages with a thin plastic layer, and we have plastic closures to reclose the package, and we started replacing those plastics, conventional polyethylene, with bio-based polyethylene. Right now we cannot get it in the right quantities and at the right costs in order to transform our whole product portfolio. We started now with green polyethylene produced from sugarcane coming from Brazil. We would very much envision for the future to have it ideally coming from forest-based products, from sustainably managed forests. There are solutions, we heard this morning, that there are solutions available to use also forests to produce polymers, but we also know that to create the necessary technology and infrastructure, it is huge investment. So, which is one reason why we are asking right now and support very much what the European Parliament has proposed in the current packaging legislation as part of the EU Circular Economy package. There is a proposal to start with from the Parliament to start with one sector, which would be packaging in this case, to start and promote bio-based and renewable materials in order to step by step start with a sector, the transformation, where the solutions are already available. And again, therefore, I would hope to find, that finds support of the majority of the member states in this case.
Mm-hmm. So Henrik, your company is involved in many forest investments at the very early phase. So how do you see, what are the bottlenecks, what is going on actually, what are the trends?
Well, first of all, the forest industry has traditionally not been an R&D intensive industry, and that needs to change, and has partly changed, as we heard from Kati's presentation. But there is a long way to go to be compared with other industries like plastics and other chemical industries. But I think there are two things we need to do a lot of research, and this research is going to be expensive, but it will be very interesting. The first one is land use. How do we best use land? And I'm not restricting myself only to forests, also agricultural land. And how does the biophysics work? How can we get carbon both above ground and underground? Is it so that biodiversity is a constraint, or is it actually the means to do it? Is it so that the ecosystem which is biodiverse is actually capturing carbon better than another, both in agricultural lands and forestry lands? Not enough research has been done in that field, and I think if we are to replant hundreds of millions of hectares, we need to know the answer to those questions, and that is a big job for European Forest Institute and other research institutes. Then on the other scale and the other side, you have material science. Again, if you go to the places where real deep material science is done, very few of these places are doing material science with biomaterials. But there is a huge potential. Kati already mentioned nanocellulose. And if you combine nanomaterial with other materials like minerals or metals, very strange things happen. And very potential things happen. Nanocellulose is stronger than steel. So I don't exclude the possibility that we have a car made out of biomaterials in the next 20 years. So that's a huge research field where a lot more research needs to be done.
So, Kati.
So maybe to add what Henrik said, totally agree. And then biochemistry could be one area when we go to sugars, hemicellulose, that kind of thing. So what can come out of that? But one other bottleneck maybe today is that, like I said before, some of the solutions are already available, but they are not competitive in price, or at least in that sense that the consumer would be willing to pay more for that product. So, but that will change, I'm sure about that.
Mark.
Yes. I think two important issues where we need more research is, first of all, we don't know very well how climate will impact our forest ecosystems, especially in the second half of the century. That's really crucial also for planning the next generation of forest, including feedback loops between forest, water cycle, carbon cycle, and the energy system. And do not forget the water cycle. We are always addressing the issue of climate from a carbocentric approach, but half of the world is limited by water. The other half is maybe limited by energy, but half of the world, from a biological point of view, is limited by water. And forests play a crucial role in the water cycle. So I think we need to start linking better the carbon and the water cycle. Another important issue where we are lacking huge amounts of research, and the economists here in the audience will agree, is on market research. I think there is a need for investing a lot in research in the emerging markets. We invest a lot in technology, but we don't know very well what these 2 new billion of people joining the global middle class, especially in China and India, which clothes they are going to wear, which type of construction they are going to build. And what they will decide to do will have huge implications, more than any European and international policy on climate, to the forest bioeconomy. So we need to invest much more on this type of research. Currently, there are 10, 20 researchers trying to explore the future markets of forest-based products. So here, EFI is taking the lead on promoting this research, but we need more support to do it.
Thank you so much. So it seems that it's really need for some basic research concerning climate change and for forestry as such. I have to say that as a representative of practical forestry organization, I'm a bit embarrassed, and it's quite challenging to find the research knowledge and findings concerning how we should optimize the growing the forests to take climate change into account, to take biodiversity into account, take recreation into account. So it's the distribution of research findings, it's quite large, so to say. But I think we all call for high value added products based on forest and more technological development in terms of use of forest and timber. So I think we are getting to the end of this panel, and the final question is then the future, and especially the key message, number one message you would like to leave to the audience concerning forest-based bioeconomy and climate change mitigation as the topic of this panel is. So maybe we start from Kai, and you have the final words, each other half a minute or so, please.
Thanks, Pentti. As I said at the beginning, the answer is actually quite easy for me, because I really see that sawmill industry is getting more and more trendy in the market, and it also plays a key role in the forest-based value chains. Without production of so simple product as sawn timber is, it would be very difficult to run other value-adding processes in the forest industry value chain. I believe that there will be a lot of that the demand for bio-based products will increase globally. We have a good story to tell. I'm concerned of the research and research resources, because we have so many levels where we try to finance it. We have regional, national, European Union level. We should somehow put our forces together, especially in the area what Henrik mentioned, how to make sure that we have enough resources for the future.
Thank you. And Erika?
Well, I think a forest-based bioeconomy is circular and regenerative by nature. We have all the tools to keep it that way and to drive it further. But again, you mentioned agriculture. I think we have to apply a systemic approach. We have to look at all the land-based system, and in order to prevent a competition or to manage the different needs our societies have. And again, the challenge is too large for one actor to solve it alone. So I think a lot will depend on collaboration, much stronger collaboration. We talk nowadays not anymore about supply chains, but about supply networks. We have digitalization as enabling technology. So we have a lot of tools at our hands, but we need to get together and use them wisely, and in order to really deploy the solutions and to drive forwards to a bio-based circular economy.
Henrik?
Well, as a pensioner, I will drive my electrical car made out of wood. The battery is cellulose-based and recyclable. I know which trees have been felled for my car, and I know that they have been replanted. My vision.
Mark?
I think we are entering a new world now, and we need a new economic paradigm, an economic paradigm that is based on a synergistic relationship between economy and ecology. And here, forestry, and the forest bioeconomy offers great potential to really catalyze such a synergistic relationship.
Thank you. And finally, Kati.
Yeah, I would also like to conclude with a very positive note for the future. I think there's a lot that the forest-based bioindustry can contribute to circular economy and the world, and then take it a bit step further than you were saying that. Then I hope that I will be flying with the airplane made of the wood.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to stop here. And on my behalf, I thank you all for good discussion, and I wish you a very nice summertime. And I'm a bit sorry about this I was not fully prepared for this moderating because I knew my role only when I was on the way to come here. So thank you so much, and
Well done.
I hope Jyrki Kangas will take the conclusions of this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for a lively panel discussion, and for Pentti for taking this task in such a hurry timetable and in a hard situation just to hear when coming in car to this place about this task. I'm afraid it's time to close the session, and some closing words. Thank you very much, panelists, again Pentti, all speakers of this session, and the audience. In Coliforum, we will take these messages and develop further key takeaways and the ideas we have got here and turn them into Coli theses of the 5th Coliforum. That will be done during our work in autumn and in some roundtable discussions by our members of our association. By the way, you all are welcome to join the association and to take part of the work of Coliforum, not only within these events as participants, but also those roundtables and other discussions within the Coliforum. Once again, dear speakers and panelists and the audience, thank you very much for participating and taking part in discussions and so on. Lunch is waiting. Thank you.